Hello and welcome to the first video tutorial on Adobe InDesign. In this video we are going to look at how to set up a document in Adobe InDesign, and we're also going to look at how to use some of the basic tools. So to get started, we'll click on File and New and then Document. Okay, which will bring up the new document video. Now there's a few initial settings that we can modify here. So firstly we can set the number of pages that are going to be in this document. So it could be a single page document if it was something like a poster, or if we were going to do something like a booklet, then we might have something like 5 pages. Okay, now there's a setting here called facing pages. We'll leave that checked at the moment and we'll come back and change that later to see what that will do. We'll start at page number 1. We'll leave document preset as it is, but in the intent check down box, there's a few different options. So print, web, and digital publishing. Now, whether we print or, so if it's going to be something like a poster or a brochure that's going to be printed, or whether we are designing this document to go on the web to be displayed on a screen, whichever one we use, we need to make sure that we use the right color mode. So if we're going to make this document for print, then the images that we use should be in CMYK color mode. If we're going to display this on a screen, then they should be in RGB color mode. So if you're not sure how to check or how to change your images from RGB to CMYK, then you can watch the tutorial here on Code Mahal. Go to Adobe Photoshop Tutorials, click on Recording Actions and Batch Processing in Photoshop, and this video will show you what you need to do to change images from RGB to CMYK. Okay, so go and watch that video if you're not sure what to do there. With images, so I have on my desktop, I have a folder here called My Project. So it's important to make sure that all of your images that you're going to use in this project and any other assets are all organized into a folder with a nice neat structure. So create a folder. This one's is called My Project, and in that folder you can create some more folders. So I've got one here called Assets, I've got one called Export, and one called Layouts. Layouts will be where I actually save my InDesign files. Export will be where I export my final project to, so possibly as a PDF file. And Assets is where I store anything like images, so JPEGs, PNGs, Adobe Illustrator files, Photoshop files, all of those are in the Assets folder. So you can see that I've already got a few JPEGs in here, and I've already converted these to CMYK color mode, okay? Because this document that I'm making is going to be for print. So I'm going to leave intent as print, but just a few important things. Just remember to use a folder and put everything in your folder. So all of your images should be in a folder, and make sure that they're organized into subfolders as well. With Adobe InDesign, by default, it doesn't actually embed images in the document. It links images. So it will link whatever's in your document to images that are in your folder. So that's why it's important to organize your folders and to keep everything in there throughout the whole project. Okay, so I'm keeping intent as print, number of pages is 5, facing pages is checked, start page is number 1, page size will be A4, so I don't need to change the width or height. I could change the orientation from portrait to landscape, but I'm going to keep it as portrait. Now here I can change the number of columns to 2 columns, and the gutter as well I can increase. So gutter, let's change that to 2. The gutter is the space between, the white space between columns. I've also got margins, and then there's a couple of other options here. I can either show or hide if I want to change these or not, but there's bleed and there's slug. Now bleed is kind of space around the edges of the document where you might want to have images covering that whole area in case the printing is a little bit off, or there's inaccuracies in printing. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Slug is an area around the outside of the document which you can use for basically providing information about the document. So there could be document name, the date, version number, things like that. Information for printing. Okay, so the bleed I'm going to change to 3, and I'm going to do it for all of them. So top, bottom, inside, outside. And then click on OK. Now, all these lines here are basically guides. So this line here, this line here, the black line, that is basically the outline of the document. So the black line there is the outline of the document. The red line on the outside is the bleed, and these lines here in the middle are the columns. So you've got one column here, and then another column over here. All right, and this section in the middle here is the gutter. So that's the white space between the two columns. Okay, so if I was going to put an image into this page, then I'd want to make sure that if the image is going to take up the whole page, that it was also covering over this bleed section here. Okay, so when it's printed and it's cut, that it will be going all the way to the edge of the document and not that there's not any white space around it. So that's the bleed section, that's the outline, this is a column, this is another column, and this is the gutter here. Okay, now on this side here we have the pages, we've got layers, and we've got links. Now pages will show all of our actual pages here. So we've got page 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, if we want to change this layout, we could go to the layout menu and then margins and columns, and we could get rid of the columns. We could just change it to one column, or we could change the margin as well. However, if we wanted to change the way that the pages are arranged, so say if we wanted to have a booklet that folded out to 3 different pages, then we would have to go to File and would have to go to Document Setup. Now here we could keep number of pages the same, but if we wanted to set this booklet up to fold out into 3 different pages, then we could change facing pages. And so we'd turn that off. And we might actually change the number of pages to 6 as well. So uncheck facing pages, click on OK. Now, right now, because I've just turned off that setting, so if we go back, this setting here, facing pages, because I turned that off, now all the pages are here laid out on top of each other. Now, if I try and drag these together to get the booklet to go into 3 pages next to each other, it won't actually work. So what I need to do is click on this menu icon, and I need to uncheck this option here, allow document pages to shuffle. When I do that, I can then click and drag and drop pages next to each other. Okay, so I've got pages 1 to 3 there, and then I'm going to have pages 4, 5, and 6 next to each other. So it's going to be double-sided, and it's going to fold out a booklet that folds out into 3 pages. Okay, if I scroll in the document, I've got pages 1, 2, and 3 here. If I scroll down, I can see pages 4, 5, and 6 here, and they've all got columns there. Now what I can do is I can use these tools here. So if you've used Illustrator and Photoshop before, then a lot of these tools will seem pretty familiar. So you've got things like the text tool, so you can click on that, and then you can click and drag to create a text box in one of the columns, and then you could just start typing in there. Okay, pick a different font, increase the size. Okay, change it to bold maybe. So all of the different settings are up here. Things like italics, bold, columns, alignment, justification, the font style, size, all of that is there. All right, and then you can use things like the selection tool to move your text around or to resize it. Okay, that's the text tool. Then you've got tools like the line tool, you've got the pen, you've got the pencil tool, we've also got the rectangle tool, and you can change that by long pressing that and choosing something like an ellipse or a polygon. Okay, got the zoom tool, hand tools, a few other tools like gradients, scissor tool, okay, and then also you can change your fill and stroke colors. So for example, with this rectangle here, I could click on the fill color, I could double click on that, and that would change the color that fills the inside of the box. If I click on the stroke color and double click on that, I could change the actual color that goes around the shape, so the line that's going around the shape, the stroke color. Okay, if you can't see that, then what you can do is increase the stroke weight, so that will change the thickness of the line just by changing that number up there. So that's the stroke weight. All right, so we've got fill color, which at the moment is green, and can be changed by double clicking on the fill color option down here. And then we've got the stroke color, which is the line around the shape, and that is red at the moment, and that can be changed by double clicking on the stroke color box down there. Okay, same with lines. So lines, we can change their stroke color, and we can also increase the weight there as well. You can type in a value too. Circles, it's exactly the same. When you see a red line going through one of these color boxes, it means it's set to no color. Okay, so that's basically how to use some of the shape tools, the line tools. When you've got the selection tool selected, then you can do things like resize or rotate. Oops. Click on that again. Rotate. Okay, so very similar to Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. We've also got layers there, and at the moment this is one layer, but you can use multiple layers to put things on top of each other. So maybe images on top of other images or text on top of images, and you can have multiple layers on your different pages. With images, if I go back to my folder, go to my project, and I go to assets, I can drag an image in. Now I won't actually be embedding it in the document, but it will be linked to the image file that's in this folder. So that's why you need to make sure that you keep your folders organized and don't go moving things around or deleting them. So I can drag that into this window. I might put it on my second page here in the first column. And then when you drag it into the document and move the mouse around, you'll see the image is just moving around with the mouse cursor. So what you can do is then click down and drag while you're holding the mouse button down to choose the size of the image. Okay? And then you could move it around. So what I was saying before, if you wanted this image to be the background of the top half of the first page, then you'd want to make sure that it's covering over this bleed section here to the right line. Okay? So it's going to go right to the edge of the document. Okay, and then you could go and resize that again if you wanted to. You could modify that. All right, that's how to get images into there. So that's a basic overview of setting up your document, changing some of the settings, using some of the different tools, inserting images, shapes, lines, text. One last thing that's handy to remember is pressing W on the keyboard. So that's a shortcut to turn all the guides off, on and off. Toggle between preview mode and normal mode. So that's in preview mode. We just see the pages and what the pages would look like. And then when we press W again, it takes us back to the normal mode where we see all of our guides, so all of our column lines, and everything's all there. All right, that's it. So the last thing that you'd want to do if you're happy with your publication is to click on Save As, and then save it into your folder. Just find that folder again. So my project, you would save it into your layouts folder. Okay. And then once you had, if I just have a look at that, it's in the layouts folder. Once you had finished with your project and you were ready to export it, then you could save it as a PDF in your export folder. All right, so those are some Adobe InDesign basics. Thanks for watching.